All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. So, welcome everybody to the Chef's Kitchen. My name is Kirsten Marinko. I handle the marketing for Duke Dining, so we're glad that all of you could join us tonight. For those of you that don't know, the Chef's Kitchen serves as a culinary learning space and offers these chef demos once a month. We also offer pop-up cooking classes, and we offer a beginner intro to cooking class and a follow-up to that class as well. In the fall semester, we offer the intro, the basic cooking class, which is known as #GetCooking, and then the follow-up class is offered in the spring semester and is known as #KeepCooking. So be on the lookout for that if you're interested for next fall semester. You can follow us on social media. On Facebook, it's Duke Dining, and on Instagram, it's Duke U Dining, and on Twitter, it's also Duke Dining, and you'll get some good updates there too. Also, the Chef's Kitchen, I'm not sure if you're aware, during Monday through Friday for lunch, it serves as a pop-up restaurant, and that typically serves a Latin cuisine, but that does change once a month to something different too. So, and tonight joining us, we have our very own Coleman Norris, who is the executive chef of JB's, the Skillet, the Commons, and the Chef's Kitchen. He's got some fun and interesting things in store for you this evening. So with no further ado, I will pass the microphone on to Coleman. And
do I need a microphone?
Oh, no, maybe you don't need one.
Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
Hey everybody, how are you? Good. Just a little bit about me. I'm Chef Coleman from, as Kirsten said, JB's, Chop House, Southern Skillet, the Common Steakhouse, and then the Chef's Kitchen. So I kind of oversee, can you turn it down a little bit? Oversee all of our operations in the, sorry. Yep. I oversee all of our operations here in the Broadhead Center at West Union. Being a chef can be a taxing job. We spend a lot of hours here every day, and sometimes 5-6 days a week usually. So one thing I wanted to do today in the class is teach you guys about what I grew up with doing at home. I'm from right here in North Carolina, about 45 minutes from here in a small rural town. I grew up on 50 acres, so I enjoy spending time outside and with my 2 young boys. But Sundays in our family and in most Southern homes has always been family night. So we always get together, originally at my grandma's house and now my mom and dad's house. We spend time cooking together as a family and eating and just talking about each other's week. So that's kind of why I enjoy cooking so much, is because I feel like it brings people together. It brings people around the table for whether it be conversation or meetings or a meal. And I love seeing the joy that people get out of partaking in a great meal. So tonight, what we're going to do is some Southern specialties, basically things that I grew up eating, and you know, we got 2 hours, so we're just going to do a few things. I want you guys to do some cooking. I'm going to do cooking. But to start out with, the first dish that I'm going to make, and since it's just a small group, you guys can come up here or you can sit tight at your tables, however you want to do it. We're going to make a tempeh, quinoa, and broccoli casserole. So this dish will be all vegan. As a chef here at Duke University and in the world, and generally speaking, people's tastes are changing, people's dietary preferences are changing. So we are adapting to learn to cook different items, especially plant-based proteins. So the tempeh and the quinoa will be highlighted in that dish. And then we're going to let you guys cook some good old Southern shrimp and grits. All right, so to start out with, while we're making the quinoa and tempeh casserole, we do need to get water going for our grits. The recipe that we have calls for instant grits, but in the kitchen here we use stone ground. So at every other burner we have pots. I think the recipe for the shrimp and grits is going to call for 2 3/4 cup of water. So we should have measuring spoons here. If you guys can measure out 2 3/4 cup of water, add it to this pot, and then underneath you're going to have your burners here. Turn that up to about 11 or 12 so we can bring that water to a boil, okay? Yeah. So basically what we're going to do with the shrimp and grits, like I said, you guys are going to work, you guys can all work together in a group or divide. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you want to do like 2 and then 3, we're going to divide these ingredients up and you're going to have enough shrimp, peppers, mushrooms to cook your dish, but you're going to cook together the grits. So I'll turn this burner on here. And if you'll just measure out about 2 3/4 cup of water, you'll be able to get started.
Sorry, how much water?
2 3/4 cups. So 2 full ones, and then a third a cup. Oh, man, if you can just check, make sure everybody's burners come on. It doesn't look like. Does it have power? Huh?
There we go.
You check everybody else's as well.
There's
Okay. All right, guys. So basically, just turn that water on high, okay? And all we're gonna do is wait for that water to boil before we're gonna add our grits in there. Has everybody gotten it turned on? How are you? Yeah. Have you guys cooked grits or grains or anything before at home? Cook rice at all? Okay. So most grains, rice, we cook them the same way. They're gonna have grits, quinoa, those items where you always remember 3 to 1. So however many parts grain you have is how many parts water or liquid that we're going to cook that in. So if I got 1 cup of grits, I need 3 cups of liquid. So that's what we call a 3 to 1 ratio when we cook. All right, guys. So we're gonna make up front the broccoli and quinoa casserole. If you guys want to come up, I'll show you how we're going to assemble that. And hopefully, be something that you'd be interested in cooking later on. Can you help me with this? I don't like that. Oh man. Okay, so anytime you're cooking something, guys, when you want to saute, you want to get your pan on high, okay? You don't want to add cold oil to a cold pan. So to achieve what we're looking for with a nice brown and a sear and what we call caramelization that brings out the most flavor of our vegetables, we want to have our pan on medium to high heat. And then when we add the oil in, we're going to look for it to slightly smoke before we add our vegetables to that pan. So right now, the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to add in the grits to our water for our shrimp and grit recipe. So we'll just go ahead and get these cooking, and they can be cooking on low while we're making the broccoli tempeh casserole. So now that I got those in there, I'm going to turn that burner down, and you guys are going to do the same thing. Once you get there, get them in and turn that burner back to low, and we're just going to let them simmer while we cook our shrimp. I think with the amount of people in the class that we have, we're going to have plenty of burners where you could just move the grits to one of the end burners, and then you guys will each be able to cook your own shrimp and grits. So we're cooking on induction up here. The cool thing about induction is that the pan or the burner itself doesn't get hot unless there's a pan on it. All right, so I'm relatively new to cooking on induction, but it is a super cool tool. The best thing about it is electric. We can take it anywhere that we want to go. So if we're doing a catering or something off-site, we're able to do that. We set up many places, whether it be Penn Pavilion or the Rubenstein Art Museum, and we'll go cook all on site there. So it's nice to have tools like this that we're able to utilize when we go over there. So everybody see the smoke coming off the pan? All right, that's what I'm looking for there. All right, so the casserole, I pretty much got all of my mise en place cut up, and mise en place is a French cooking term to mean in its place. Okay, so when we cook here at work or at home, basically I like to have all of my knife work, everything pretty much ready to go, so that while I'm trying to cook and focus on my recipe, I'm not stopping, cutting, chopping. So when you make the shrimp and grits, or when you're cooking anything, the first thing you want to do is read all the way through that recipe, top to bottom. Make sure you understand it first. If you have questions about it, look them up. Look up your ingredients on the internet if you need to. But make sure you understand what the end result is supposed to be before you just start cooking, because what'll happen is you'll get halfway through and then you'll have missed something, have a question, and it won't turn out exactly like you want it to. So we've got our onions and carrots here, and we're just going to add a little bit of garlic for flavor. I believe the recipe says we're going to sweat these down about 3 to 4 minutes. All right. So do you guys like to cook? Why'd you sign up for a cooking class or a chef's demo? You like to cook?
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah? Okay. Do all of you eat here in the Broadhead Center? Okay. Have you been to our restaurants, JB's, Skillet, The Commons? Okay. So we got our onions and carrots in there. We got a little bit of color on them. All right, so the next thing that we're going to add is our tempeh. Does everybody know what tempeh is? Okay. Tempeh is a pressed soy with grains and vegetables. So the tempeh that we use, and I'll pass this around to you guys, like right now in the Skillet, we just started an all-vegan breakfast because there's a high demand for vegan and vegetarian cuisine across campus. So tempeh, the one that we use, is made of brown millet, rice, corn, quinoa, I believe, is in there. Very high in fiber, contains a lot of amino acids, and that are good for you. So what we do with that tempeh for our breakfast in the Skillet is we slice it into strips that kind of look like bacon, and then once we get it in that form looking like bacon, we throw it in our smoker downstairs for about 2 hours, and we'll let that smoke so that it gets a nice bacon flavor, traditional form, and then we'll cover it in molasses and a little bit of brown sugar. And finish it on the flat top like you would traditional bacon. Okay, so once the tempeh is in there for this casserole, all right, the reason I wanted to do this dish is because, again, Sunday night suppers. So going over to my mom's and my grandma's every Sunday night, what we like to do, or afternoon, typically, is we're in church on Sunday mornings. All right, so we're going to make something the day before, leave it in the refrigerator. We can pop it in the oven while we're at church. We come home, we got something to eat. So this dish can be made ahead. You don't have to do it right away tonight. It'll basically be done as soon as we are finished making it. So we're not requiring any leftover reheating, but you could certainly make it and then chill it, top it with your breadcrumbs or your crackers, and then pop it in the oven before you go somewhere and come home to a hot meal. All right, so now that the tempeh is in there, we're going to add our quinoa. Quinoa contains all 7 essential amino acids. This means it's really good for you, very high in protein and fiber. So basically, this is like rice, cooked similar to that, because we have about 4 quarts of vegetable stock in here. We're adding about a cup of quinoa. So it goes back to just typically how we cook the same way we're going to cook our grits. All right. And it'll cook up and become tender after about 15 minutes. Okay. So now that we have that in there, we're gonna cover this, let it go for about 15 minutes until the tempeh and the quinoa are cooked. And then we're going to come back and finish it just by adding our soy milk, vegan cheddar cheese, and thicken it up with the cornstarch sugar if we need to. I did forget, we're going to go ahead and add our broccoli in there so that can be steaming as well. I'll put about 4 cups in here. And always season. Anytime you cook, guys, you want to season basically all the way through your dish. Think about what your ingredients are and how much salt. Like if you're using, for example, in the next recipe, we're going to use tasso ham in our shrimp and grits, which is already going to contain a lot of salt. So that's something that you wouldn't want to add much additional salt or pepper to. All right, so now that that's in there, as again, I'm a little new to the induction burner, so hopefully that's going to simmer for us. Right now, I have this set on medium heat at about a 14, and I'll come back and check on that. So now, basically what I'd like you to do is let's head back to your stations. We'll check the water. Hopefully Amanda's turned it down so it hadn't all evaporated on us. If it has, then we'll just add it back to the pot and we can start cooking our grits. All right, so for the grits, like I said, it's basically 3 to 1, and hopefully these are going to cook up pretty quickly for us. In Southern cuisine, the more butter, the more cream you use, basically the more fat, the better we think it is. All right, so what we're going to do is while you're constantly whisking the pot there, you're going to add in your grits slowly, okay? If you add in the grits while you're not whisking, they're all just going to clump up on you. So make sure that you're whisking, adding your grits in, all right? And then we're just going to let that constantly stir them and leave them on about 8 for hopefully 10 to 15 minutes. Again, at the end, you're going to add the smaller cup of cream and a little bit of the butter there, all right? Remember what I said before we start cooking. You guys forgot already. Read through, if you haven't, the entire recipe so you know what steps that you're taking. No, I'm good. Why? I know. You got enough heat in there? So guys, look, when you're cooking, always cook by feel. No matter what the recipe says, if it doesn't look right, do what you think is the right thing to adjust it. Guys, so over there, let's add a touch more water so those grits aren't sticking, and maybe turn the heat down just a little bit. Yours looks good. What I would do is just turn that heat down to about a 4 or 5, and we should be good to go there.
We add some water because it was a little bit dry, but now I think it's fine.
Looks good now.
Yeah. Should we lower it down, or 10 is fine?
I think 10's good, and they look good. I know I have one vegetarian. Is everybody else going to eat shrimp and grits? Does everybody else eat pork and no pork? Okay. So I'll show you how I will make the shrimp and grits. Now, everybody's basically going to make your own shrimp and grits. So on this side over here, we have individual pans, and you each have your own burner. So while our grits are on low, and we can go ahead and add about 2 tablespoons of our butter, and then the quarter cup of cream to those grits, and just let them stay on low so they'll be on chill while we're making our shrimp and grits. Okay, so if you don't eat pork, that's fine. The trays at the end of each of your tables are what's there for you to assemble your shrimp and grits dish. Very simple. We're going to saute our shrimp over high heat, and then after we saute our shrimp, we're going to remove them into a bowl, and then we're going to build our sauce. So by building our sauce for the shrimp and grits, we're going to add a little bit of butter to our pan, our vegetables, whatever we choose to use. I have some mushrooms, some onions there, and bell peppers. And then the pork or the tasso. If you don't want the tasso in there, you don't have to put it. And then you're going to add your wine, reduce the wine by half, and then finish it with the cream and butter, and then add the shrimp back in at the end. Yep, that's the smaller one there. Yep.
Should I put in some more water, or?
I think that's good. Just put in your cream there.
The entire thing?
Mm-hmm. The smaller, the 1/4 cup of cream will be what you're putting in there.
How many pieces of butter?
And then just about half of that butter there will be fine. And then make sure you're seasoning with salt and pepper. Is everybody good with how your grits look right now? All right, so turn those grits down to about a 1 or 2, and we're just gonna peek over at them every few minutes and stir them to make sure they're not sticking while we're doing our shrimp and grits. No, we won't finish. Guys, if everybody will come back up here now, we're gonna finish off the tempeh casserole.
So what would you add instead of tempeh if you were making this non-vegan?
So if I wasn't making this vegan, Well, how we typically make this at home, we would be making it with chicken.
Okay.
All right. Again, same thing like we're using. We're going to finish off the casserole so we can get this in the oven. All right, so what we're looking for here is basically we want to make sure that the quinoa is cooked. So quinoa is a little pearl. So when they're cooked, they'll kind of pop open and you'll see a little bit of white. So it kind of creates like a little seashell effect. So now it looks good. It looks like our broccoli is tender here. So really to finish off this dish, we're going to just add in our flavoring ingredients to make it creamy and have a good like casserole type texture. In this recipe, because we want to make it vegan, we're going to use soy milk. Soy milk can be a little tricky, and we'll taste it when it comes out. You guys can let me know what you think, because no matter what, whether it's unsweetened or sweetened, vanilla, plain, to me it typically has some sort of sweet hint at the end of it as well. So we've tested this recipe. It's something that we're thinking about adding because it's a homey style dish down in the southern Skillet. So this is my third or fourth time playing around with it, and we'll see what you guys think of it. So when we add in the milk or dairy, we're basically going to add it in slowly while stirring constantly. And I need to turn that timer off here. Basically, we don't want to break the cream or milk in that recipe. What happens, and it's a little bit harder to break soy milk because it doesn't have the fat content that your traditional dairy milk does. But what happens is the fat separates the enzymes in the milk, so you'll end up with like a crumbly texture. So you'll see it in your sauce. If you ever go somewhere and have a dish like the shrimp and grits we're going to make, when you add that cream and butter in there, you want to do it slowly and at the end of the process, so and constantly stir. If you break that, it'll curdle and you'll have a grainy texture in your mouth when you eat that. So now we've got our milk in there, and then we're just going to add our vegan cheddar cheese. Once you add the cheese and the cream to most casseroles, like if you're making a cheese sauce for macaroni and cheese at home or like we do here, we're basically at that point want to turn our heat all the way off, again for the same reason. If that cheese gets down to the bottom of the pan, it's essentially just going to scorch and cause your mixture to curdle. All right, so now we pretty much have everything we want. At this point, you got your casserole ready to go. If I wasn't making it with tempeh, we make it with chicken. We put rice in there instead of quinoa, more butter, more cream, make it nice and southern, how my family eats on Sunday night. But for this purpose, it should be nice and healthy, contain lots of protein and fiber, stuff that's really good for you. So I'm just going to taste this really quickly before we get it into the oven. Always taste your food as you go to make sure that you like how it's going to turn out. Because if we don't, like now, if it needs more salt or pepper, we can add that in before we put it in the oven, and we don't know what it's going to taste like afterwards. All right, I'm pretty happy with that. So from here, I'm just going to go ahead and transfer this into our pan. We're going to make a quick topping for it. And pop it in the oven while we're doing our shrimp and grits, so it'll be ready to eat at the end. Does anybody have any questions on this? Is anybody allergic to gluten? Okay, so for this topping, basically what we're going to do is I just have some store-bought wheat crackers. We're going to take those, mix them with some chia seeds, which come from the chia berry. Again, those are typically from tropical climates. So those chia seeds are a crazy health fad right now and have been for the past couple years. So they pack lots of fiber and protein. Basically, they're really good for you. So we're gonna, to me, it's like a poppy seed. It's gonna add a little bit of color and some flavor into our dish. So we're just gonna take our crackers, basically crumble them up. This is typically how I make any type of cracker topping. Same thing with bread. You know, you could do this with leftover bread. It's typically how we make items for our Caesar salads, like croutons or breadcrumbs, or sometimes we do cornbread toppings. Like if I have cornbread that I've baked off at 12 o'clock in the morning and it's 4 o'clock and we haven't sold it, my cooks know that we don't want to throw away that cornbread. They're going to save it for me so I can make a salad for the Commons buffet. If we have stale bread and JBs like brioche buns, we're going to take those brioche buns and we're going to cut them up to make croutons, or we're going to cut them up to use in our bread pudding for the skillet. So as a cook and a chef, you're always looking for ways to utilize everything that you have and not let go anything to go to waste. I feel like it's part of our duty in what we chose to do as a profession to make sure that we take care and pride in the ingredients that we use. So to the crackers, I've just added a little bit of oil. So what that's going to do is going to make that brown up nicely, get a little color on top, and we have our seeds in there. So typically in a southern home, you're going to use butter and plenty of butter in this cracker topping, all right? And I'll add a little crunch and texture on top of there. All right, I like to put plenty on. It's up to you how much or how little you use. The crunchiness on top of a casserole is my favorite part, okay? So I went a little bit heavier on that. All right, so at this point, we're ready to make shrimp and grits. I can turn you guys loose on that. Basically, I'll start by demoing it up here for you, just to kind of walk you through it, and you guys can be making it, ask me questions at the same time as you do it. But find yourself a saute pan and go ahead and get it over medium to high heat. And the first thing we're going to do is cook our shrimp and then set those to the side, and we'll be ready to start building our sauce. All right? So this now is going in the oven for about 20 to 25 minutes. We just want it nice and bubbly and let those crackers brown up a little bit. All right, so again, I got my heat on the pan. I want my pan hot before I'm going to start the shrimp and grits here. You guys enjoying the warmer weather? Yeah.
Sure.
All right. So now that we have a little bit of heat, here we're going to go ahead and add our oil in. It may say butter on your recipe. I'm sure it does. I'm not used to cooking with whole butter because traditionally it's more expensive. So for cost reasons, in professional kitchens, we'll typically start with olive oil and use butter at the end to finish our recipes. So now we have this cranked up, and I have mine set on about an 18 here, and so I'm just looking for a little bit of smoke before I'm going to add our shrimp in there. So really easy just to walk you through it. Once we get our shrimp in, we're looking for a little bit of color on there. We want to cook them about part of the way through, but not all the way, because we're going to add them back to the sauce at the end. So if you cook them all the way now and then you add them back to the sauce, then they're going to be overcooked and mushy to eat. So put that last one in there. That's always what you want to hear when you're sauteing something. The key is you don't want to overcrowd your pan. If our cooks start cooking here and I don't hear that sizzle when the food hits the pan, they know that I typically am going to get very upset with them, because what that does, it just adds in flavor. If you don't have a hot grill, I'm sure some of you have been to JB some nights where the grill's not hot enough and the salmon has stuck to the grill and you're missing about 1 ounce of your 6-ounce portion of salmon. It's because our cooks don't have the grill hot enough. So it's important when you're cooking not to be afraid of heat and utilize it. You can always take something off the heat, but if you don't have it and you start cooking improperly, you can't add more once you're there. All right, so the shrimp part of the way cooked through right now. So we're going to get these off the heat, and I'm going to build what we call a quick pan sauce. Most of the time in professional kitchens or restaurant kitchens, we don't make many pan sauces unless we're upstairs in the commons. Like those guys, when you order a risotto or lobster mac and cheese we had on the menu last semester, or ravioli we had this year, they make pan sauces there because we're feeding smaller numbers. But if you're downstairs in JB's and Skillet, when I make shrimp and grits, typically what I'm going to do is saute about 100 pounds of shrimp, make 5 gallons of the sauce that we're going to make now, and then mix them all together and put it over top of grits. So it's a little bit different beast when you're cooking for yourself or 2 or 3 people. All right, so we've taken the shrimp out, and that pan is back on the heat. We've not cleaned the pan or not done anything because that shrimp flavor is still in there. So at this point, we're just going to add a little bit of butter, the remaining butter that you haven't put in your grits. All right. We're going to swirl that around and let it get some color. You should have some garlic on your station. Add in your garlic and sweat that out just a little bit. So what you'll see on the bottom of this pan is called the fond, all right? So the fond is another French cooking term, which basically is your drippings from your pan. So when we add our wine in there, what we're going to do is a process called deglaze. So all that skin from the shrimp is going to come off the bottom of that pan, and it's going to add flavor to our sauce. So we're sweating our peppers down a little bit here, and then we're going to go in with some onions and mushrooms. The recipe that we have there is very straightforward, so it just calls for bell peppers and 2 types of bell peppers and the tasso ham. While I was downstairs today, I had some mushrooms and onions in the cooler, so I decided to chop those up so we could add them into our sauce here. It'd be something to give it a little bit more flavor. So at that point, I'm going to go in with my tasso. Right now, we're basically just letting everything meld together, get a start cooking on that. All right, so what you'll have on your stations is a tray just like I have. My intent was for 16 people to be cooking. I think we have a few short. of 16. So basically divide those ingredients evenly between the 2 of you or the 3 of you or the 4 that are working together to make your shrimp and grits. Can you give me a couple of those the square plates at the end of the tables here, just to spoon this into when it's done? All right, so now I've added my wine and I'm stirring. So you guys saw it, I know you did when I was cooking before, how the whole pan looked black like that. All right, as soon as I had that wine in there, we did glazed. All right, so all that flavor is coming off the bottom of the pan there and into our sauce.
Is that because wine is acidic? So
Yep. Exactly right. And so most of the time, anytime you're making a wine-based sauce, you're going to reduce it by half. We do the same thing if we put beer or tequila, any type of alcoholic product. So we're basically cooking the alcohol out. So once we reduce by half, our sauce is pretty much just waiting on the cream. So at this point, I've kind of let my grits sit over there and stiffen up, which is fine. I'm just going to warm those back up just a little bit. All right, so rolling over pretty high heat here now. And so what I'll do is turn that down just a tad. And then I'm going to constantly stir and slowly, in a single stream, add in a heavy cream.
Is there an issue if you don't reheat the grits?
The what?
The grits, is there an issue if you don't reheat?
No, that's not an issue if you don't reheat the grits. Basically, you want to eat the grits hot. There is what we call the time temperature danger zone. So basically, anytime you have food that's potentially hazardous, like butter, milk, cream, meat, you don't want it to be out above 44 degrees for an extension of 4 hours, or basically at that point we consider it dead and it has to be thrown out. That's basically to keep you guys safe. Bacteria grows at higher rates in food once it's above 44 degrees, and it grows 3 times as fast between 50 and 70 degrees. So what we train our staff on is hot food hot, cold food cold. So if it's cold, you want it below 44. If it's hot, you want it above 140. All right. So right now the cream's boiling, and you can see it's starting to thicken up a little bit. Your guys' pot's going to be a little bit smaller because you're taking that tray and dividing it between the 4 of you. So basically what I'm looking for it to do is just continue to thicken, and what it'll get to is what we call a nappe consistency, and that basically means to coat. All right, so we're looking for this sauce to coat the back of this spoon. All right, so right now you can kind of see that it is. I have a clean towel underneath here, but basically when I put it on there, I don't want it to be thin. I want to be able to take my knife and run a streak down through there and be able to see it separate. Okay. So we got our cream in there safely. It hadn't separated on us. And if you're under time constraint or you want to get it done a little bit quicker, we'll just turn it up and we'll let it reduce even farther down. So cream, milk, one of those things you have to watch, because if you're not watching, you're not stirring it, you're not controlling your heat, it's going to boil over and scald on you. How's it smell? Good? So we'll just peek over, and our casserole looks good in there. should be coming out, be ready to go about the same time as our shrimp and grits. So our grits, like you said, can be a little bit room temperature because we're going to be building this sauce. It'll be right out of the pan, so everything should be nice and hot when we get there. What I would do if I make grits at home and then I'm making my sauce for my shrimp and grits is you can put them in the microwave, heat them right back up really quickly. All right, so the sauce is beginning to thicken a little bit for us here. We still got to cook our shrimp just a little bit more. So I'm going to go ahead and add those in with the juices because that's our flavor. We don't want to lose our flavor. And then once everything is in, we're just going to let that continue to cook down a few more minutes to get our shrimp done. And then it's pretty much ready to serve after that. Does everybody feel pretty comfortable making this? All right. Super simple. All right, so I'm just going to let that cook just a little bit more and then we'll be ready to serve. If you guys are ready, go ahead and start on your shrimp and grits. When this cooks down just a little bit more, I'll come around and show you what my end one looks like, and then you guys will be at that point when you're ready, all right? Missing something? No. Yep.
Excuse me? Is that salt and
Yep, it sure is. And I believe there's the salt and pepper already mixed together, and then there's some already on your station as well. All right, guys. So you got some plates at the end of your tables right here. So towards the end, you just put in a little bit of your grits into your bowl. All right. Top it with your shrimp. All right. And then you have fresh herbs there that you'll be able to finish off the top with just a garnish. All right. So that's what we're looking for in the end.
Should I wait for this to like
Yep.
heat up?
We want to let it heat up
That
just a
looks
little bit. All right. So this is what we're looking for in the end here. All right.
A little watery consistency.
Mm-hmm.
Alright.
And then the grits are gonna soak all that up. So all right. So good job. We're just waiting to see. Leave it down, and like I said, don't be afraid of the heat. You'll just start to see a little smoke, and then that's when you know that you're ready to add your shrimp in. All right. You got to take a picture of yours, because yours is going to look just as good as mine.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, really?
Holy cow.
So I have to.
Great job, man.
I want to turn it. I just can't keep it in my ear. That's the only thing. You want shrimp and grits?
What's that?
You want shrimp and grits? Yeah, crank it up just a little bit. I'm with you. What?
I've burned it, right?
No, that looks good. That's what you're looking for. That's perfect. You want a little bit of color on there. It means you let your pan get nice and hot. So at this point, you're ready to go ahead and put those in your bowl, and then you can start building your sauce with your garlic and then your vegetables and tasso. You can't really, the good thing about it, guys, is you can't really go wrong with the sauce for the shrimp and grits until you start adding the cream in at the end. So that's really the only spot where you can stand to mess up. Any spot other than that, you're basically just putting flavor into the pan, and we're cooking it all down together. All right. Yeah, I think that's good there. Mm-hmm. Looks good. Yep, so at any point there, you can go ahead and put those in and start your sauce. looks good. It was great.
Question actually. So, what did you say made dairy break down again?
So the milk fat in the dairy is what makes it break down. So the way dairy is made up is so you have skim milk, which contains less than 2% fat, and then you have your 2%, your whole milk, which is typically less than 4, and then half and half, which contains 16% fat, and then heavy cream, which is a 32% fat or 40% fat content. So the more fat that it contains, the more unstable that it becomes, and it causes it to break down.
So it's the high heat and the
Yep.
that causes the milk.
Yep, exactly.
Some more onions.
Do I have? Did they use all the onions up? I might have some on my cart in the back. Hold on one second. Let me see.
Maybe.
All right, so you got your wine in, you got your wine in. What are those? You guys, you got your wine in yet? Not quite? Okay. Yeah, let those go for just a couple more minutes, and then you'll be ready to go with the wine. Great job. Beautiful. What do you think? How's it taste?
Can I put the cream now? Or boil it?
Let's let it go just a little bit more before we add the cream there. Does anybody know what tasso ham is? No? No tasso? Okay, so the ham comes from the backside of the pig. So basically what that ham is done is bone rolled and tied, and then traditionally in New Orleans, where shrimp and grits, the Charleston area originated, tasso ham is basically a spicy ham. So it's got a cayenne, chili powder, onion, garlic, strong flavor. It's then rubbed in those spices and allowed to marinate and penetrate, and then it's smoked whole ham over hickory wood chips for a very long amount of time. So what you get is this super smoky, intense, spicy flavored ham. So it's used commonly in all types of Creole cuisine, from Florida to North Carolina, even on into Virginia. But famous chef that you guys may have heard of. He has a lot of spices. Does a ham is Paul Prudhomme. He is kind of like the master of Tasso ham, so that's the brand that we use here. All right, so everybody's is looking great. Your cream is thickened up quite a bit there, so we can reduce the heat a little bit, right? And go ahead and add in your shrimp whenever you're ready. All right, so looks like everyone's pretty much at the same stage. We can turn that up, turn your heat up over here just a little bit, and then you'll be ready to add your shrimp in momentarily. Do you have you want Tasso in there?
No,
You know
good.
Tasso for you? Sorry.
Should we add the parsley now or later?
So the parsley and the thyme, we're just going to leave right on top as garnish. The herbs, if you cook herbs for too long, guys, they take on a bitter, dirt flavor. So we want to keep our herbs as nice and fresh as we possibly can. So we're going to add those in just on the top of our dishes, kind of as a garnish there. All right, guys, so Amanda is going to drop a square bowl by your station. I'm going to come by and spoon you some grits in there. So once your dishes come together, you've tried it with your tasting spoon to make sure your shrimp tastes like you want them to. Then you can just spoon that mixture right over top of your grits, and you're ready to go. And then at that point, you guys will be able to take a little break, sit down and enjoy your shrimp and grits. And our casserole will be coming out of the oven at about the same time. Is everybody good? Got any questions? Did you lose heat? Are you good?
Yeah.
Okay. Looks good.
Thank you.
Are you hungry?
I'm very
Have you guys had dinner or lunch? Mm-hmm. Oh, you're fine. I will let your shrimp go just a little bit longer, all right? Yep. All right, so at the very end, guys, you can add on your fresh herbs. We have a little bit of chopped thyme there and some Italian parsley, all right? So that's just going to add fresh herbaceousness to your dish. and give it a little pop that you wouldn't otherwise have. So the red stuff on your table is hot sauce. Sometimes in the South you cannot make things spicy enough for people. So I put the hot sauce there. If you want to add hot sauce to your shrimp and grits, then you most certainly can. If not, with the tasso they should have plenty of heat on their own. So I gave you guys each a couple bowls here. You can have it all if you want, or divide that up between two. We can give some of the extras to the camera guys, the sound guys. Mr. Robert Coffey, the director of dining for Duke University, might like some shrimp and grits. All right, so if you're done, guys, feel free. Go ahead and eat. Enjoy. We're going to pull the quinoa, tempeh, and broccoli casserole out of the oven now. I'll show you what that looks like, and then you're welcome to help yourselves to some of that as well. If you started eating, how is it? Good? Amazing. Perfect. All right, so here's your tempeh, quinoa, and broccoli casserole. All right, guys, the key is this is super healthy, all right? So I got to make it look really good and smell really good to try and fool you a little bit, all right? So my goal is to make it look just like my mom's and my grandma's chicken and broccoli casserole. So I think we got that here. We're just looking, it took 15 to 20 minutes. All right, just a little brown on those crackers and chia seeds as it came out of the oven, and then we just garnish it with some fresh parsley. Amanda and I will get you guys some plates, but you're welcome to try this as well. We're going to set it up here at the front. See your casserole here. We're going to set this up front. You're welcome to try it as well. How's the shrimp and grits? Okay. Casserole. Excuse me. Yep. Mm-hmm. And get more when we need to.
Big fan of the tasso ham.
Yeah, tasso. The tasso is great. Look, so if you want to make shrimp and grits at home, you might not always have tasso. You might not have an onion in your fridge or a tomato or peppers. So basically, it's ingredients of the South made into a gravy. Some people don't even put cream in it. It's just made with the broth from the shrimp or seafood stock or chicken stock. So there's so many variances. If you go online and look up shrimp and grits recipe, you'll find probably 200 different variations. So you can really put anything you want to in there. A lot of times here we'll use bacon instead of tasso. You could use Italian sausage. You could use andouille sausage as well. So typically, any type of fresh vegetables you have. Traditionally, I like to do what's Southern cuisine, and which they call the Holy Trinity, which is onions, celery, and peppers. All right. French cooking, basically the main thing that you put in every sauce or every dish is what's a mirepoix. A mirepoix is onions, celery, and carrots. It's the base to all the sauces, most of the soups. In Southern Creole cuisine, they call it the Trinity. So you take the carrots out, and then you add peppers in there naturally. All right. So, hope you enjoy the shrimp and grits. And then help yourselves to the casserole. See what you think about that. That's one that I'm thinking about testing around our restaurants. Is a move to provide vegan and vegetarian dishes to all the students. So see what you think about that, and then I appreciate any feedback on that dish as well. So somebody's got to be the first one. So after you eat, guys, we have cups here, water, sweet tea. If you're thirsty, help yourselves. And then lastly, I'm going to demo how to make brownies from scratch. We're going to melt marshmallows on top and make a little chocolate ganache for that. And then put some ice cream so you got something sweet to leave on. Thank you.
Pearson and Harrison. They worked it down pretty quick. Yep.
They say
Very
that.
nice take on that.
Thank you.
I could deal with healthy there.
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Hey, dessert here? What is that?
You should try.
What is that?
That is
Do they already make this and it's just cooking right now? Or
what? We just pulled that out.
It's good.
So this is the last thing, right? If I had somebody that just wanted to come in since we have space, could they jump in here? Okay.
But yeah, 'cause you're
There's a
gonna
chocolate brownie with marshmallows, roasted marshmallows. We're gonna make a ganache to put on top.
You're making ganache? I might have to say.
Well, it's just chocolate and cream.
I know what it is. I love ganache. Best thing to make if you have it at home to make it.
Yeah, this is gonna be the fun part here.
I know.
Very nice job. We got to run. But, probably dessert coming too. But
That's
very,
right.
I'm serious. It's very nice.
Thank you. Thank you. How's the casserole?
It's good.
Good.
Can be sampled?
Yeah, I have some shrimp and grits. How are you? Good. Let me heat them back up real quick for you here.
So what is the shrimp
So the shrimp is made in a tasso gravy. So basically what we did here is we sauteed the shrimp, and then once the shrimp came out, we put a little butter in the pan, and then hit it with onions, mushrooms, peppers, tasso ham, and then heavy cream. Here you are. Should be some forks and stuff on the middle of the table right there. Spoon and take that to the camera guy. So when everybody's finished up, take your time, guys. And if you need to take a restroom break, fine. If not, we'll get everybody up together at the front, and we're going to demo how to make our double chocolate brownies while I pop some pre-made ones in the oven. So basically I'm just going to walk you through how to make a brownie batter from scratch. We'll cook some off, and then we'll make a chocolate ganache, and then everybody will get to eat some dessert, and then we'll call it a night. So feel free to ask me any questions you like while we're up there as we're making the brownies. You guys did a great job with the shrimp and grits. Hope you enjoyed it. So whenever you're ready, come on up and we'll go through the brownie recipe.
I had some questions.
Yes, ma'am.
So it says the prep time is 45 minutes. What, I mean, it doesn't seem like it takes 45,
So-
but that includes like chopping.
I think I have a typo here. The prep time should only take us about 15 minutes for the recipe of 4, just to chop the vegetables and get the shrimp together. So it looks like I do have a typo
Oh,
right
so
there.
that's like chopping time and then that's
Yeah,
and then
total
cooking
total
is
time.
on top of it.
Yeah, total time should be about 45 minutes to an hour there.
And my other question was, so first the shrimp is cooked a little bit, about a minute, and then it's taken out, and then bell peppers are cooked, and then it's added back in. I was wondering why do we cook it, take it out, and then cook it again?
So basically with this recipe, we're doing everything in one pan. So we want to cook it to start the cooking process to sear the outside of the shrimp a little bit and to get some of that flavor in the pan. And then if we left them in there the whole time with the other items, they would overcook on us. So we move them out and then soften the peppers and the other vegetables and then put them back in closer to the finish.
So if you hadn't done the first 1 minute, then they would not get to kind of.
Yeah, so in that first minute, we're getting a hot pan and we have our oil in there, so we want to lock in, we want to sear what we call locking in the juice and the flavor of the shrimp. So once we've locked that in, we've lost some of it in the pan, but we're adding the vegetables to that pan, so everything's going to stay in there.
Really delicious.
Thank you very much.
So for vegetarian, what would you replace the sausage with? Or if you don't eat sausage?
If you wanted to do it pescatarian or vegetarian, pescatarian, we have quite a few of those. They like all have this.
Like, you didn't hear about this show? No, but I just think it's
when I like vegetable sauce back to ingredient like
one summer, I literally brought a giant frying pan with like extra spices in the bag, and it actually got stopped by security. So they opened it up and like found the like giant pan with like jack spices.
Yeah. Or we can simply make this dish with tempeh. We build the same flavors.
I just like spices,
but the way it's made, the sword, the grains of person, it'll hold up by blazing it in the sauce.
Yeah.
So
when I came back here after a spring break, I brought like big Tupperware filled with like 30 stuff.
You're good. So I'm confused a little bit, sorry. When you were talking about the tofu versus tempeh, so how would you cook each different type?
So for this recipe, because we're braising item in the sauce, I would use tempeh because it's pressed together.
You would use it like we did the shrimp,
Yep,
cook it
I would
and then
mostly
take it out and then bring it back.
You would sear it, get a little crust on the outside, get that flavor on the pan, and then just use vegetables instead of potassium.
But you couldn't do that with the tofu. Tofu you just add it after the bell peppers.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Coleman.
Nice to meet you.
Do you need cutting boards anymore? Do you need cutting boards anymore?
No.
Yes.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start demoing our brownie mix here. So the brownies, really pretty simple thing to make. I prefer to make them from scratch because they are so easy instead of going to the store and buying a brownie mix. So to make a batter, pretty much anything that you do with baking, there's three types of baking. The creaming method, which is used typically in a lot of cakes. So you're buying sugar with your butter or cream, and then adding in your dry ingredients. So we're basically going to do the same thing with the brownies. Melt our chocolate and our butter over a double boiler. Double boiler is a pan set up with just a little bit of water. We got that up on medium to high heat. And what that does is going to just make sure that we're not scorching our chocolate there, but we are melting it down for the brownies. So for this recipe, we're using cocoa powder and chocolate. So this is a 60 to 70% cocoa chocolate. So it's sweetened a little bit. If you're making it at home, you can go to the grocery store. First, use Nestle's chocolate, just some chocolate chips will work just fine. So once our heat comes up a little bit, that'll melt down for us. Once we get it to this point, we're just kind of waiting on that. And then once it's there, we're going to add in our sugar, our brown sugar. And then after that, we're going to turn off the heat, add in our eggs. So when you're adding in your eggs, we got to be careful that we're not scrambling the eggs. Because we are adding them into a hot liquid. We'll let it cool slightly. And just like when you add cream in to your sauces, you want to do it slowly. There's a process called tempering, which you would take a little bit of the mix that you're using, the chocolate, add it to the eggs, slowly temper it in so we're getting our eggs the same temperature as we would be the chocolate that we're adding it to. One key to this recipe as well is you want to leave your eggs sitting out for a little bit so that they're coming up to room temperature. They're not 40 degrees right out of the refrigerator. And then you're going to add them to a hot sauce, which will cause them, make it easier for them to scramble on. All right, so I got that going on the front. I'm going to try to go ahead and move this to the back. And I'll be stirring that. So while we're working on the brownie mix, we're going to also make a little ganache to pour on the top of our brownies that are in the oven. We'll kind of just drizzle that over at the end. Man, I think I forgot to measure it out. It should be a little bit of heavy cream on the bottom of my cart back here. If you can bring that out. So you can see now it's kind of melting down. It takes a little bit of time, but it's worth it.
So shiny.
All right, so for the ganache, guys, we're going to start with a cold pan when we add the cream. I didn't give you a recipe for the ganache. It's really pretty simple to make. We're going to take about 1 cup of heavy cream and add about half a cup of chocolate to that, and then we're just going to stir those down to combine them and make a nice little melted chocolate sauce for our brownies.
Could you tell us more about the espresso powder?
So the espresso powder is something you just pick up typically in the coffee aisle in the grocery store. They're doing is take those beans, grounding them down even farther and adding them as a flavoring agent. It's certainly not a must in this recipe, but if you do, it'll give you that coffee flavor in the brownies. All right, so here we got our chocolate melted down. You can see there everything is pretty much incorporated into together. I'm just peeking on our brownies that we're making as a sample over here. And our ganache is pretty much ready to go as we speak. And you can see how quickly that came together. I'm just going to turn that off. so I can reserve it, and we'll melt that right over top. We'll melt that right over top of our brownies when they come out. So I'll just set that off the heat. And then at this point, you want to turn the heat off on both. So my brownies, I'm going to leave over the water, the hot water bath, and we're just going to go ahead and add in both of our sugars. Brown sugar is going to add a little bit of sweetness, a little southern hint, molasses flavor to the brownies for us. And we're just looking to combine the sugar in and get it pretty much as smooth as we can from that point. You guys ever eat in the commons upstairs? Have the brownie sundae? Nobody? Okay. Typically in the commons we keep about 5 different desserts on the menu up there. And the brownie is one we have on the menu currently. It's the most popular one. We'll typically serve anywhere from 100 to 120 people on a busy night. And we'll probably sell 25 or 30 brownies every night. So it's pretty popular. So I pulled this off the heat, and I want to cool this chocolate down before I add the eggs to it. So that way we're not going to scramble our eggs. So what I've done is every cook, every chef, we have a wet towel typically underneath our cutting boards. That helps us not to have cutting boards that slide around. So I'm just taking that towel, I'm going to set my bowl in it, because what I want to do is I want to be able to, when we're going to mix our dry ingredients together, I want to be able to pour my dry ingredients and my eggs in while not having to hold on to my bowl, and that wet towel is going to keep it still there for me. So while we're letting that cool a little bit, we're just going to go ahead and mix the dry ingredients together for the brownies. So this is where you want to keep your dry separate from your wet. We fold these in at the very end. If you mix your dry ingredients in too early, and in most cakes, what happens is that you overwork your flour. Flour, just like turning a pizza dough, if you overwork it or you knead it too much, then it becomes very tough on you, so they become chewy. So that's why with these brownies, we want to add our dough in, our flour at the very end. So you can use a whisk. I'm just going to take my hands, get down in here and mix all my dry ingredients together, try to get out any lumps in my flour and make sure everything is smooth, make a mess on the table at the same time. It doesn't have to be perfect there. So those are ready to go. Amanda, can you check the brownies in the oven there for me? Just see how they look. All right, so now we're back to our mix, and I'm hoping that it's cooled just enough where we can get these eggs in here without it separating on us. So, like I said, a little at the time, because what it's doing while I'm adding just the first one is just cooling the chocolate mixture down, okay, before I just go and dump everything in and scramble it. So the more I add in, the cooler it gets, and then once I get to the end down there, I'll be able to just go ahead and finish it off without having to worry about scrambling it.
So another way was to add a little bit of the brownies into the eggs first?
Yeah, the other way to do it will be the process like you call tempering. You take a little bit of the warm brownie mix and add it into the eggs. And it'll bring the two items together to a light temperature. So then at the very end, I'm just going to add in my vanilla extract, and we got all of our wet ingredients in, and we're just going to mix to make sure all the eggs are blended in, and then we're just going to add, that's my timer for the brownies, then we're just going to add our dry ingredients. All right, so after we add our dry ingredients, these are pretty much ready to go at that point. Into the oven, if you're making them at home, you just put them in a 9x13 glass or aluminum baking dish, spray with a little bit of pan spray, and it'll take about 30 to 35 minutes. Here, I only cook them for about 15 to 20 minutes, and then just to add a little elegant touch, we put some mini marshmallows on there and brown them in the oven, and then we're going to cover that with a ganache. All right, so just to add a little something extra to your brownies tonight. All right, so mix is ready here, and just to finish this off, we'll go ahead and dump. And like I said, I'm just going to try to do this very lightly. Start on the outside of the bowl and work this mix in toward the center without overworking it too much. Eventually you're going to have to get in there and stir, but we want to make it as minimal as possible. Always make sure you scrape down the side of your bowl. You guys ever make brownies before from scratch? You ever make brownies out of a box? Alright, no? So I have two kids, 5-year-old or a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old. You know what their favorite part about making brownies is? Licking the bowl. Alright, that's your brownie mix. So I'll save that. I'll bake that for my staff later tonight. All right, give everybody a treat before they go home. The ones that you guys are going to enjoy are right out of the oven here, and I'm just going to top those with a little bit of chocolate for you. And then I have some ice cream in the back. If anybody wants ice cream, let me know. I'll get the ice cream. And that pretty much concludes our demo for the night. Hope everybody had fun. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right, does anybody want ice cream? No? All right. Wait till you see the scoop job they did on the ice cream.
Is it okay if we grab those, or is someone going to eat it?
Yes? Go ahead.
Okay.
Go right ahead.